Hi and welcome back to Cheeky Crypto. Today, guys, we're going to be jumping down into the world of Cardano to specifically take a look at the price action of ADA. Obviously, there's a lot of things that are going on in the background for Cardano. I'm not going to go into a lot of those, right now, but there are quite a few things that we should be aware of in terms of, what's going to increase the transactional volume, what we're going to see this year in 2022, and, a lot of that kind of stuff will build into what naturally will happen with the price of Cardano's ADA. So in this video, we're just going to take a look at the technical analysis. I'll probably do another video at some point in the next few days, really talking about the fundamentals of Cardano, really going into a little bit more detail of what I would expect to happen in 2022 with Cardano that will obviously naturally increase the price of ADA. So if we get into this video, if you find it useful, informative, then do go ahead and hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, then why not go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. And, if you're wanting a little bit more out of the crypto space, then why not come and join us on our Discord server, check out our Patreon services, and you'll be able to get a little bit more insight in terms of what we do for strategies around bear markets, bull cycles, additional technical analysis, etc. All the links for that are in the description down below. Right, let's jump on down into the desktop and take a look at what's going on here with the price of ADA. Okay, guys, so to start with, we're going to take a look at the hourly view, right? This is what's happening right now. This is, the kind of the most current kind of price action of what's going on. What am I expecting to happen in the next kind of couple of days? That's what we're going to talk about here. There's a couple of things I think are really important that we kind of take a look at. We obviously had the ABC here, right? This actually was a double top, so the very bearish signal. So what we end up with is basically our A wave and our C wave kind of coming to the same point. You don't have the same kind of ratio that you would expect to see. Normally, you would actually expect to have actually pushed this up a little bit higher, but instead you ended up with this double top, which then leads us into a downside action. Now, obviously, this is led pretty much from Bitcoin anyway. We saw that kind of pullback back in the time. So obviously, that actually runs from the 5th of January. And we find this good, strong area of support, right? So we found a really good level of support. This was basically $1.19. I'm sure we were wicking below it a little bit, but ultimately we weren't actually closing the candles down there. And that was actually quite encouraging. Then obviously, we started to find ourselves with a bit of a top and, down here, we obviously started to decrease, right? So lower highs. Obviously, Bitcoin continued to pull back as well, in line with its expected move. And again, what we're looking at there and kind of the value, we saw Binance buying up 43,000 Bitcoin, for example. And obviously, we can talk about Binance and the amount of kind of price manipulation that we've seen on the hourly chart, where so many price points have been hit to the penny. And, for the most part, you would expect to see a couple of them, right? Because, you're going to have buy orders and sell orders at certain points, right? But not to the extent that you have seen it with Bitcoin. It's just crazy amounts. And it requires a lot of volume at those specific price points to basically get a reversal in a candle, specifically with something like Bitcoin. And so you can tell that it's not something, something isn't quite right there with Bitcoin. And obviously now it comes out that they bought, a significant amount. So I look at it as, they were liquidity farming. So basically just going down or finding the pockets of liquidity and basically, mopping up any potential stop losses, liquidation, leverage positions, etc. Obviously, it turns out that they're able to now take advantage of big buys like 43,000 Bitcoin. I think that's like $2 billion or something stupid. So we do have to acknowledge that if big players are doing this, we don't want to be shaken out of the market. And obviously, the larger timeframes confirm big moves to the upside. So on the hourly here, you can kind of understand why the price was moving in these kind of patterns here, kind of following what Bitcoin's been doing. But also, this actually puts us into a pretty clear area. Now, obviously, Cardano is not necessarily susceptible to as much manipulation, from things like Binance, etc. But obviously, when it's so heavily decentralized, we've got large amounts of staking occurring. It makes it a little bit safer in terms of what can absolutely go on there. Obviously, we don't use leverage. We buy, we hold, we store, we put into cold storage, we stake it, we earn passively from it, and we would never use something like Binance to stake it. That actually kind of then centralizes us. So we obviously run the validator. If you're interested in actually delegate into the Cheeky or the Cheeky Cardano pool, then there's a link to that in the description down below as well. Why not check that out if you want to? But obviously, it supports the decentralization effort of Cardano ultimately, which is the end goal here. Now let's get back into this technical analysis. We can see obviously we had those two kind of major pullbacks. Now what we want to do is we want to say, is this a big kind of ABC correction, and actually are we actually looking for a big push to the upside, right? And in order for us to really run this, we're going to want to take our low point here, we're going to run it up to that high point of our C wave, and then we're going to just transpose this down on top of our high point over here, this being effectively a B wave. And right now you can see exactly that's what it is. It's an exact I mean, you couldn't really write it. It's pretty much exactly it. So this becomes your A wave, this becomes your B wave, and that becomes your C wave. A 1-to-1 ratio, guys, with your A wave. So measuring the A wave here using the Fibonacci tool, moving it down to the top of wave B, measuring the distance of wave C comes to 1-to-1 ratio with A wave. So that actually then completes that. That basically means that that's completed. We've got the reversal, not impulsive, because this crossed our wave A. We pulled back, sure, but this actually now is heavily oversold, so we should be looking for price action to push back up above our 119 area. So what we're going to do is we're going to measure that distance. We're going to take that high, we're going to take that low, which is just down here on our support of 112. We're going to move that up into this point here. There's no guarantee actually. Let me just move that back for a second, that this is a low point. It's very, very low. It's a good retracement zone, the 236, effectively a 786 retracement if we actually run it backwards. So if I actually remove that and we throw this on to here and we go this way, we can see that it comes right down into that 786 area. If I can pull that onto there. So hovering on the 702, staying above the 702, but also above that 786, right? So we know that the Fibonacci retracement, is kind of quite a heavy one, but it's pretty much where you'd expect it to be. It's not unusual by any stretch of the imagination. So as we take this from the top down to the bottom here, we'll assume that this is our low point, but we could be open to a little bit lower, and we can move this accordingly. But for now, where we are at this particular point of recording this video, that's the low point, so we'll take that. We'll then go ahead and run an A wave up, a B wave down, and then we can see a C wave just coming up here about $1.25. Okay, now obviously if we go above $1.29.6, that actually turns impulsive, and we'll be talking about no longer an ABC wave, but instead it would be a 1, 2, let's just say we go to that 1.618, a pullback for wave 3, and then a wave 4 here. So you end up with this impulsive 5-wave count rather than just a 3-wave count. Okay, so for now that's actually looking pretty good on the smaller time frame. We'll have to see if this actually goes down any lower, but the Stochastic RSI is looking for a reversal. It is looking to get some momentum. It is looking to go up. So actually on the larger time frame here, we'll be building into. I think it's good news. Okay, so I'm going to remove the fib, and we can see that that's one of where we're going, and we're heading out into that range. Perfect. Okay, so obviously that's the here and the now. That's kind of what's going on right this second. What's going on with Cardano? This could be a really good entry point if we want to ride up a few percentage points if we're into trading. If that's kind of your bag and that's kind of things that you're looking at, then you might want to take a look at that and say, yeah, look, there's about 10% potentially on the table here. I might be able to take advantage of. Perfect. But what about the slightly longer term, the hodlers, the people who are, super long, or even maybe medium term? Maybe you're thinking you want to kind of get out of crypto this year. What does that look like? Well, we're going to take a look at the daily chart. Okay, the daily chart for Cardano is actually looking quite encouraging too. Now, we've pulled back a little bit deeper than we were expecting, but again, this triangle it has to pull right the way down in order to get invalidated massively. But there is a triangular wedge here. We haven't formed out any kind of major moves with this. It's far too early for anything major, but we do have some interesting points of contact, and I'm just going to put that in there. So we've got a couple of contact points on our ascending trend line, and we've got a couple of touch points on our descending trend line. Okay, so overall, we can see that this is a triangular wedge kind of forming out that tends to end with one of two things. Usually it ends with a breakup or a breakdown, and if it's an Elliott wave triangle, then this is actually quite encouraging if we have our wave coming down to start with. If our triangle starts from a wave down, then actually that means you generally end up with a break to the upside, as in if this is wave A, B, C, D, E, then this leads to an impulsive move like so. Okay, perfect. It's far too soon to say if that's what's going on, but it's good to know that we have got a downtrend creating the triangle rather than an uptrend creating the triangle. Very important to be aware of that. Now, on here, we can see that the Stochastic RSI is oversold, heavily oversold. In fact, it's at 0.09 on the fast line and 5.4 on the slow line. Anything lower than 20, okay, 20.00 is oversold. We've been oversold for quite some time. beginning of January, but we have been declining in this daily chart since December, which is fine. We can see the growth that we had beforehand and what happens when you're in this oversold area and where you move to afterwards. So ultimately, this daily chart is actually really encouraging. We've got a good position on the Stochastic RSI. Growth is imminent. We are likely to push up. Obviously, there's a little bit of volatility that we're seeing on the smaller time frames, but ultimately, we're in a really good position to see some pretty good growth with Cardano. Again, there's fundamental reasons why we're going to see these things, but from a technical standpoint, things look like there are going to be some moves to the upside. And this is just from technical perspective, which means traders are going to be taking a look at it. Traders are going to be picking up on this. You're going to see some green candles. You're going to see some FOMO from some retail investors, and then you'll potentially see this thing reverse again. Okay, that's kind of how it's going. Now, the fundamentals are interesting, and they will have an impact on the price of ADA, but that isn't going to happen straight away. That's going to take some time. But obviously, I do expect Q1, Q2 of 2022 to be really key months, or I guess quarters or periods for Cardano. We're going to start to see a lot more adoption on this cryptocurrency. We're going to see more demand for the ADA coin. And as a result of that, we're going to see steady growth with the price. They kind of go hand in hand, right? It's very natural growth that you're finding here. It's not artificial. As I said before, right, we have a heavily decentralized network. You know, the coins are heavily distributed out there, and it's not kind of centralized. It's not controlled by a few billionaires, etc. Right? It's just not something that you're going to get a load of paid advertising for, etc. Right? And you're not going to see that kind of stuff. Whereas you might find that for more centralized projects that have that kind of centralized control, that are able to maybe get some kind of promo marketing material out there. Instead, you have IOG, Charles Hoskinson, with his YouTube channel and the things that he's been doing, press conferences, etc. But you know, not directly linked to Cardano, but obviously the development arm of Cardano, right? So kind of linked, but indirectly linked, right? If that makes sense. You obviously have the Cardano Foundation that are more prominent for that kind of stuff. That being said, you know, we are looking at some continued growth, and as things kind of develop and grow, we're going to see the price of ADA go along with it. Okay, increase. There's basically, I say this a lot, right? It's two things. We need supply to be controlled, and we need you know, demand for the coin or token. So in this case, we want a squeeze on the supply. We've got quite a lot delegated out there already, a lot of delegation, which is good for squeezing the supply. It's not a massive squeeze because obviously it doesn't, unless you're staking with someone who wants you to lock it up for 30 days, there's no lockup period if you're delegating, you know, in Deadliest or Uri wallet, for example. So it's important that we understand those things. But other than that, there's a reasonable squeeze on the supply if you're looking for better yields from Binance, KuCoin, Gate.io, whatever, right? With that being said, you know, when you actually start to see a use case for the ADA coin, then you're going to start to see a new demand for it, right? We've got digital IDs, Ethiopia, Boost Mobile, just two kind of, you know, 13 million people that are going to be using digital IDs. There's a 13 million transactions as I look at it. Then, of course, we're going to have dApps launching on the ecosystem, dApps migrating over from Ethereum onto the EVM, for example, on the sidechain. And that's obviously going to increase the demand for ADA to pay for those gas fees, etc. Right? So we're going to start to see transactional volume boost. And with transactional volume boosting, we're going to expect to see, you know, a boost in the demand for ADA. And when you have a boost for demand, there's usually a shock to the supply. And when you have the shock to the supply like that, that's where you start to see massive price discovery. So that's kind of where I do see us in the medium term, right, in 2022. It's looking pretty good. We're heavily oversold, and once we start to see that that kind of level of demand kind of really spike up, that's where we see Cardano really start to pick up some momentum. Now, on the weekly chart, we have something quite interesting. Okay, we were tracking very, very nicely. You know, 13,000% gains. It's pretty reasonable. It's not the best in the portfolio, but it's pretty reasonable. And obviously, with that being said, you know, we had a really short fifth wave. I do think this is deviated now far enough away from that fifth wave after setting an all-time high and coming all the way back down here. I think this ABC correction is a reset, and therefore we're waiting for a new trend to form out, okay? And what we're waiting for here is basically to see whether or not we actually end up with some decent traction to the upside. Now, we're oversold on this Stochastic RSI. We have started to gain a little bit of momentum, but we lost that recently as well, so we are expecting a bit of an impasse here where we can potentially see this thing going down. Also starting to come back down on the Stochastic Stochastic RSI TAD, but we are looking to start to rise this up, right? We've got some interesting targets. We're looking for a bounce up towards that $2.12 area, okay, and then we're looking for rejection from there. So that's just after that ABC corrective move, a bounce up to there, then pull back and probably down into that kind of 150 range, and then continue to progress up to maybe even that high area here of about $2.82, okay, in that kind of range. Now that could turn impulsive. I spoke about this before. We could potentially see, this is one big wave with, several waves that kind of follow it, taking us up into some crazy high numbers. Now, obviously, that's all speculation at this point, but with Cardano, anything is kind of possible. When I think back to when we were down here, everyone was kind of like laughing, why are you investing in a project that has no utility, absolutely nothing? Well, it's not about what it has right now, it's about what it's going to have in the future and what price can you get in at. We got in at Cardano, I wish I was earlier, but it was less than 10 cents. I wish it was much earlier than that, but that is what it is. And still, we've seen very significant growth, and these kind of pullbacks are very insignificant because we are long-term visionaries in terms of where Cardano is going. No other blockchain is out there setting up governmental deals to this kind of degree. Constants are going to run on Cardano, all that kind of good stuff. And I think we're going to start to see a new trend form in 2022. And there's crazy numbers that could be achieved under the right circumstances. The Fibonacci retracement tool over here on the left hand side is our trend-based fib. It takes a look at the trends that we've seen so far and predicts out about $11 on the 4.236 extension. This is where I think has actually been deviated away from, and we potentially now are going to be looking at maybe starting another impulsive wave, very similar to what we saw previously. And if you would just take this impulsive move at 13,000% and laid that onto where we are today, that actually puts us quite reasonably in line with where we would be considering some other positions. It does put us way too high, to be fair. But if we actually bring this down into a more reasonable area and we think about $25 as a nice round number to be aiming for, that's a 2,000% gain. Now, 2,000% from our current position, it does seem not to be too bad. But when we actually consider that from the beginning of the bull run, that would basically be 140,000%. So it might be a tad too high, and we should probably rein it in a tad. This is why we have several other kind of price targets to also consider here. I do think that the range of $10 is a very comfortable area. This actually would make it about a 56,000% gains. Something similar has been achieved by Matic. So again, not totally out of the realm of possibility. Going up higher towards that kind of $15 range does put us in the kind of higher end of things at about 84,000%. But again, not unheard of in this space. So do have to watch out with that kind of stuff. Don't want to speculate too highly, but I think it's important that we kind of acknowledge that right now, we could be looking at some pretty easy kind of gains to be made. Now, if we actually take hold of our current position and we think about, how many X's do we think is likely to occur here, a 10X kind of gets you in that kind of range of $10, $11 pretty comfortably. And obviously, as we start to scale this up, you can kind of take a look at it, right? And we think if we were to go to $20, we're talking, moving up about 16x. If we go to $15, we're talking about an 11x, 12x approximately. So there's, potential in this kind of range here to kind of see those kind of numbers come in, as long as, of course, the demand is there that really does shock the supply. And it really comes down to those two things. I know a lot of people will argue that the market cap cannot go that high, etc. And I do actually fight that back with, do you understand market cap? Because market cap is just the last sold price multiplied by the circulating supply. It has absolutely no bearing on price, or no value, bearing on value, but absolutely everything to do with price. It just shows you the last sold price if it was fully diluted by the circulating supply. That's all it is doing. It isn't actually showing you the amount of money in a project. It's not showing you the amount of liquidity in a project. It is a really poor kind of attempt to kind of rank cryptocurrencies, right? It's not something that is overly useful when you try to figure out whether something is valuable or not valuable. And I know I saw a lot of this stuff specifically around Cardano when they say, how has Cardano got, whatever billion-dollar market cap? It's not worth that. It hasn't. Where's the value? Well, you're mixing the lines, right? Market cap doesn't measure value, it just measures price, and we need to get that into people's heads, because it doesn't make a lot of sense if you're trying to analyze a market based on market cap and thinking that it's overvalued based on market cap, when actually what I'm seeing here is an undervalued cryptocurrency, ADA, in relation to the rest of the crypto space. I think this has massive potential to push to the upside. I do think a 10x is very, very comfortable from its current position. I think actually we take a look at it from the percentage yield point of view, it's not too dissimilar to what we've seen Matic already do. And therefore, I think this is fair game to think that we can push up to these high numbers, considering we have a growing ecosystem and this has been achieved on just speculation so far. What happens when we actually start to see demand for real world use cases on that ADA as well? I do think we are going to be in a very interesting position going further forward. So guys, I'm going to leave the video there. I kind of wanted to do a video that kind of spoke a little bit about what's going on right now on the hourly chart, talking a little bit around what I think is going to happen in the next few kind of months, and obviously where I think long term this bull cycle is going to take ADA. If you have found this video useful and informative, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, then why not go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. With that said, done, and out of the way, I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.